I wasn't supposed to be home that night. If you had asked me earlier that week, I would have said I'd be flying in Friday afternoon, like always. The conference in Denver ran 2 full days and my return was set for the evening after. But the weather had other plans. A storm rolled in fast, grounding flights and scrambling schedules. Mine got rescheduled without warning, and by some miracle I ended up on an earlier connection. One text to my boss and I was cleared to take the rest of the week. I remember sitting in that terminal, feeling weirdly giddy about the idea of surprising May. We'd been married 10 years, enough time for most surprises to die out, but I still liked the idea of catching her off guard in a good way. Maybe I was nostalgic for a time when surprises between us were still sweet. So I didn't call. Didn't text. I wanted to show up at the door like some rom-com character, maybe even with Thai food from that place she liked by the highway. I remember thinking how she'd laugh, call me a dork, and pull me into a hug. I thought about that moment all through the flight. What I didn't think about, not once, was the idea that maybe I'd be the one surprised. When I pulled into the driveway around 9:15, the house looked peaceful. Lights were on in the kitchen, soft and warm through the blinds. Everything else was dark. The porch light was off, which was a little odd considering she always flipped it on at dusk. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she was in the middle of a movie. I told myself not to overthink it. I grabbed my duffel from the trunk and let myself in quietly, trying not to startle her. The moment I opened the door, something felt still. Not empty exactly, but not like home either. I stood in the foyer for a moment, listening. No TV, no music, no laughter or footsteps. No May. Her car was in the driveway. Her keys were on the hook. But the silence in the house wrapped around me like insulation. I walked toward the kitchen, expecting her to pop out any second. Instead, I saw her phone on the counter. That alone wasn't strange. She often left it behind while taking a shower or doing laundry, but it lit up just as I reached for a glass of water. A soft ping. Instagram notification. I didn't mean to look. I swear I didn't. But something about the timing, the way the screen glowed in the otherwise quiet kitchen, drew my eyes. There it was. A photo she'd just posted maybe 5 minutes earlier, a stemmed wine glass sitting on the table out on our back patio. The candlelight glowed warmly beside it, and that soft throw blanket she loved was draped over the chair, just as I remembered it from the last time we had a quiet night out there. The caption read, "Perfect evening to recharge." Needed this. Again, not suspicious on its own. Except for the reflection. I don't know why I looked closer. Maybe because something about the light didn't sit right. Maybe because, subconsciously, I already knew. In the glass door behind the table, blurred but unmistakable, was the reflection of a man's arm, holding a second wine glass. I stood frozen for a long moment, blinking at it like my eyes were tricking me. I enlarged the image. The arm was resting against the doorframe. The build wasn't mine, bulkier, maybe a little younger. Bare forearm, a dark watch, fingers curled around the bowl of the glass. Whoever it was, he was standing just inside the doorway when she took that photo. Not distant. Not accidental. Present. I stepped to the back door and looked out. The patio was empty now. 2 glasses sat on the table, one with a faint smear of maize lipstick on the rim. The throw blanket was there, just as in the photo, slightly ruffled. The candle was still burning, its wax pooling at the base. There were no signs of a struggle or urgency. Just quiet. I backed away, my mind already spiraling. I looked upstairs. The bedroom light was off. I climbed the steps slowly, each one feeling heavier than the last. The door to our room was cracked open. I pushed it gently. She was in bed. Asleep. Or pretending to be. Her hair was still damp, pulled back in a messy bun. She had her sleep mask on and her breathing was steady. One hand rested loosely on the pillow beside her. She looked peaceful, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just been sipping wine with another man while her husband walked in the front door. I stood there in the dark for a moment longer, debating whether to wake her. I could ask her right now. I could show her the photo. I could demand an explanation. But I didn't. Instead, I changed clothes quietly, brushed my teeth in silence, and slipped under the covers like nothing had changed. I faced the ceiling, my eyes wide open in the dark, my heartbeat louder than my thoughts. And still, I said nothing. The next morning, over coffee, I brought it up. Casually. I saw the photo you posted last night. That's a nice *T, the wine glass with the candle. Real cozy. She smiled, stirring her tea. Yeah, I just needed a moment to myself. It was nice. I kept my tone even. You know, funny thing, there was a reflection in the door. Looked like someone else was there. A man's arm, I think. She didn't flinch. Oh, that was my brother, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He dropped by on his way home from work. Only stayed for 20 minutes or so. You know how he is, shows up randomly, doesn't say a word ahead of time. I nodded. Right? Forgot he was back in town. He just moved back last month. I told you that, didn't I? She hadn't. I knew that for a fact. But I said maybe. Things have been busy. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. Don't overthink it. It really was nothing. I smiled. Said nothing more. But something inside me shifted in that moment. Not because of what she said, but because of how easily she said it. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd been expecting the question. I couldn't prove anything. Not yet. But the reflex in her response, the speed of it, the way she layered in extra detail I hadn't asked for, it all hit me like a flashing red light. I'd seen her lie before. To friends, to family. White lies, small ones. Enough to know her tells. And this? This wasn't casual. This was practiced. Later that day, I tried to dismiss the feeling. Told myself maybe it really was her brother. Maybe I was just being paranoid after a long week. But then I remembered something. Her brother lived in Boston. He hadn't been in Texas for almost 2 years. I really tried to believe her. For the next few days, I told myself it was possible. That maybe I misremembered where her brother lived. That maybe he had moved back recently and forgot to mention it. That maybe the arm in the reflection wasn't as clear as I thought. I even checked the photo again on her profile, but it was gone. Deleted within hours of being posted. That stuck with me. So I asked her again, casually this time, while we were folding laundry. Your brother still around? She didn't look up. No, he just stopped by for a quick chat. That's all. Must have been a quick trip back to Texas, I said. When did he get in? She hesitated barely a second. Last weekend. But I'd been home last weekend. I was the one who picked up groceries Saturday morning. The one who did yard work on Sunday while she caught up on work stuff in the guest room. He hadn't come by. No extra car in the driveway. No signs of another voice in the house. Nothing. Still, I let it go. Outwardly. But inside? The shift had already started. It's strange how one moment, one reflection, can cause your brain to start connecting dots you didn't even know were lying around. Like dust settling after a storm, revealing the wreckage you never realized you were standing in. The next few days, I started noticing more. Her phone was always face down. Always. Even when charging. That wasn't new, but I suddenly became hyper-aware of it. If I entered the room, she'd swipe the screen off fast, sometimes sliding it into a drawer like it was part of a game. She laughed more when she texted lately, but not with me. At dinner, her eyes would flick down to the table, smile tugging at her lips as her fingers danced across the screen, only to look up and act as if I hadn't noticed. And it wasn't just the phone. A month ago, she took a girls' trip to Sedona. Said she needed time to reset, do some yoga, clear her head. I didn't question it. I even helped her pack. I wanted to be supportive. She came back with a tan, souvenirs, and a new crystal bracelet she said was for energy alignment. I let it slide. But now that moment came back to me and it hit differently. When she unpacked, I had gone to grab her laundry bag from the suitcase, and tucked into one of the side pouches was a receipt from the hotel gift shop. It was small, barely noticeable, and I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now I remembered something specific, a narrow box labeled men's tie, blue silk, $48. I'd laughed and asked if she bought it for me. She blinked, caught off guard. Oh no, it came with the room package. I think it was a mix-up. At the time, I shrugged it off. Yeah? It felt like a red flag waving in my face. Then there was the DNA envelope. That had arrived 2 weeks before her trip, addressed to her under her maiden name. The sender was a lab I didn't recognize. When I brought it in, she snatched it from the mail pile before I could even finish asking. Just part of a coaching thing I'm doing, she said. It's nothing. I didn't press. Back then, I still trusted her. Looking back, I realized I had been living in a fog. She was slipping away in increments, little choices, unexplained absences, conversations cut short. But because it didn't come with shouting matches or slammed doors, I chalked it up to life. People grow apart, right? They get busy. They forget to check in. They need space. But now the pattern was undeniable. And I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. She had declined our usual summer trip this year. We were supposed to go to Vancouver. It had been our tradition for 5 straight years. She said she needed time for self-work and had booked a silent retreat instead. When I offered to come along, maybe we both could use the break, she shut it down fast. Said it was women only, that she didn't want to bring our dynamic energy into her healing space. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding my coffee, wondering when I had become a threat to her peace. I remember feeling like a guest in my own marriage. That sense hadn't gone away. Even small routines had changed. We used to cook together on Sundays, laugh about dumb reality shows while chopping vegetables. Now she insisted on cooking alone. Said it helped her relax. Then she'd disappear into the den for an hour-long Zoom call with her women's circle. No names. No introductions. When I'd walk by, her screen was always angled away. I started to catalog things, not intentionally, but like my brain didn't trust itself anymore. I became an observer in my own home. A phone bill with calls to a number I didn't recognize, always late at night. A new pair of men's sunglasses in her car's glove box, a friend's, she said. I was giving him a ride after yoga. A strange key on her keyring I had never seen before. Little things. Isolated, they were explainable. Together, they formed something else entirely. I wasn't paranoid. I was awakening. And with that awakening came something I hadn't felt in a long time: clarity. A clarity that made me question every moment of the past year. Every explanation. Every convenient excuse. That Instagram reflection had shattered something, not just trust, but illusion. Because once I allowed myself to truly believe something was wrong, the truth came rushing in like a flood through a cracked dam. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't misremembering. I was being played. And May? She was getting careless. I started noticing the patterns in her moods. She was often irritable before a weekend away, then strangely affectionate when she returned. Overcompensating. Performing closeness. And I let myself enjoy the affection because I didn't want to rock the boat. I told myself things were improving. But now I saw it for what it was: guilt management. That thought sickened me. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake most nights, eyes on the ceiling, retracing months' worth of interactions. Not just hers, mine too. The way I dimmed myself down to avoid conflict. The way I stopped asking questions just to keep the peace. The way I'd accepted her absence as normal. But it wasn't normal. It was intentional. And the thing that hurt most was realizing how long I had excused it all just so I wouldn't have to face what I knew deep down. She wasn't just distant. She was gone. Emotionally, physically, possibly even morally. She was still in the house, still wearing the same perfume, still going through the motions. But the version of her I married? That person had disappeared long ago. Replaced by someone calculating, secretive, slippery. Someone who could post a photo like that, knowing the risk, or worse, not caring. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. I wasn't ready to blow everything up. But I knew one thing. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't the problem. For the first time in a long time, I was finally seeing things as they were. And I was done ignoring them. There's a moment, and I think every person who's ever been lied to long enough knows it, when you stop wondering if you're being deceived and start asking how deep it goes. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday night. May was out on one of her evening runs. Lately, those had become more frequent, always around the same time, always when I was busy with work stuff or too tired to tag along. I used to join her. We jogged the trail behind the community park, wind down with smoothies afterward, talk about podcasts or work or how fast the trees were changing. But now she ran alone. Headphones in, location tracking off, phone notifications silenced. That night, as the front door clicked shut behind her, I sat in the living room, staring at the spot where she usually dropped her keys. I heard the muffled rhythm of her shoes fade down the sidewalk. And then I moved. I didn't hesitate. I don't know if it was instinct or something more primal, the gut-level need to know. But I walked straight to the guest room and sat down at her laptop. She rarely used it around me, but I knew she used it often. The screen lit up with a fingerprint prompt. I tried mine, of course, denied. Hers? Already logged in. Her email was open. My hands hovered over the trackpad for a second. I felt guilt. Real guilt. Like I was trespassing on sacred ground. But I swallowed it. I reminded myself of every red flag, every strange lie, every quiet moment where I convinced myself to ignore the signs. That guilt was what she counted on. That hesitation was part of the trap. I clicked into the deleted folder. It was empty at first. Then I saw the toggle in the corner, show recently deleted. I clicked it. And there they were. Emails. Dozens of them. All within the past few months. All carefully erased, not just deleted, but intentionally cleared from the inbox and then from the trash. But not gone yet. The first one I opened was from a hotel. A confirmation under the name Daisy Sloan. I blinked. Daisy Sloan was her old business pseudonym, a name she used when doing freelance wellness work years ago. It hadn't come up in a long time. I thought she dropped it. Apparently not. The email detailed a reservation at a boutique hotel in Santa Fe listed as a 2-guest booking. The dates matched the weekend she claimed she was at a coaching retreat. There was a PDF attachment, check-in confirmation, spa package, and a romantic dinner reservation for two. No coaching seminar. No yoga. No women's circle. I opened another. And another. Different hotel. Same alias. Different city. Each one neatly lined up with weekends she had been recharging, connecting with herself, or retreating for growth. The pieces clicked into place like puzzle tiles snapping into a full, cruel picture. In one PDF, I saw his name. Alex Travers. That name rang a bell I didn't even know was still wired to memory. I sat back in the chair, pulse in my ears. Alex. He had worked with May 5 years ago. Tall, annoyingly charming. The type who always found an excuse to linger too long during work dinners. The guy she used to casually dismiss as annoying but harmless. I'd even asked once, teasingly, if something had ever happened there. She'd rolled her eyes, swatted my arm, and said, ugh, as if. Apparently, as if turned into absolutely. I typed his name into the email search bar. There they were. Conversations. Romantic, cryptic, some with code names. She had used language like our weekends, recharge time, cleansing rituals, things that, on the surface, looked like harmless coaching talk. But the context made it obvious. These weren't business trips. These were trysts. Carefully curated, hidden behind digital smokescreens. And then came the message that finally K** led the last bit of denial in me. It was dated just 3 weeks prior. The subject line was blank. The body read, don't forget the tie. Same room as last time. Bring the sage if you want to laugh again like Sedona. That was it. But it was everything. The tie. The same room. Laugh again like Sedona. It lined up. The timeline. The tone. The object I had found in her suitcase. The things she had tried so hard to brush off. I'd let them go, piece by piece, and now they stood here, rearranged into a perfect betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. Still. Then I started saving. I emailed copies of everything to a new address I created on the spot, one she'd never guess. I saved the PDFs, **Ted the emails, and even printed a few on our wireless printer in the garage that she never used. My hands moved like I'd done this before, even though I hadn't. There was no shaking. No doubt. Just focus. I backed out of her email, cleared all traces, and closed the laptop just as the door opened downstairs. She was back. I heard her keys hit the bowl. She called out, hey babe, I'm sweaty and gross, give me 10 minutes. I managed a reply. Something neutral. Something light. Then I walked downstairs, heart steady, face blank. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, cheeks flushed, smile easy. She kissed my cheek and walked past me like nothing had changed. And that's when it hit me, for her, nothing had. The lie wasn't weighing on her. The betrayal wasn't tearing her up inside. It was just routine. I watched her move through the house, light candles, pour wine, plop on the couch to watch a show she always said I didn't get. She laughed like she hadn't just gutted me with her silence. She thought she still had control. That moment, watching her curl up with a blanket like a picture of comfort, was the moment I felt it click in me. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding or a one-time mistake. This wasn't a drunken lapse in judgment or an unresolved emotional affair. This was structure. This was methodical. Planned. She had created an entire framework of deception and invited someone else into it like they were building a second life parallel to mine. And now I needed to dismantle it, not with emotion, not with rage, but with precision. That night, while she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and began mapping out what needed to happen. I knew the bank accounts. I knew where our documents were. I knew the people I could trust. I just needed time. Time to build my own structure, not to win her back. To escape. And not just escape, to reclaim. She thought I'd never question her. She thought I'd never check. She thought I'd be too loyal, too passive, too broken to do anything about it. But what she didn't understand, what she never seemed to understand, was that I wasn't weak. I was watching. And now I was awake. After that night, I never looked at May the same way again. It was like someone had wiped a foggy mirror clean, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I saw her as she truly was. Not the woman I fell in love with. Not the partner I built a life with. But someone else entirely. Someone who moved through our house like it was a stage, playing a part she didn't believe in anymore. And me? I played my part too. But with a new purpose. I said nothing. Not a single word about what I'd found. Because what do you do when someone hands you the script of your own undoing? You memorize it. You learn every line. And then when the time is right, you rewrite the ending. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee, sat on the porch, and watched the sun rise. May came out an hour later, groggy and barefoot, wrapped in her favorite sweater, the one I'd given her 3 Christmases ago when we were still us. She kissed my forehead like always. "How'd you sleep?" she asked. "Fine," I said, smiling. "Really fine." She didn't notice the shift in my voice. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. That was her way, skim the surface, avoid the deep water. She was already scrolling her phone before I finished my cup. I watched her laugh softly at something on the screen, her fingers moving quickly, thumbs dancing over secrets. I got up, kissed the top of her head, and went back inside. That day, I opened a new bank account. A separate one, under my name only, at a different institution. I didn't transfer everything, not yet. Just enough. Enough to keep her from noticing. Enough to build the first wall between us without her feeling it. I took a long lunch break and visited a lawyer. A friend of a friend. I didn't file anything. Just gathered information. Asked questions. Walked out with a folder full of answers and a sharp clarity in my chest. Then I started packing, slowly, carefully, methodically. Not bags. Not suitcases. Boxes. Hidden in a rented storage unit under a false name in a facility 20 miles from home. A friend helped me find it. No questions asked. Just keys, a lease, and a metal door with my new life waiting behind it. I moved the things that mattered. Childhood keepsakes, my grandfather's watch, legal documents, tax records, the backup drives from my work, and the few gifts from my parents she hadn't accidentally donated during her minimalist phase. Piece by piece, I gathered the parts of my life that weren't tainted by her lies and relocated them. Like an evacuation before a storm. All while she kept texting at dinner. Laughing behind closed doors. Planning retreats for her growth. And I said nothing. She started noticing my silence eventually. One night she asked if I was feeling distant. Said she could sense an energetic misalignment. I nodded thoughtfully and blamed work stress. She offered to lead me in a couple's meditation. I declined and offered to do the dishes instead. She was smug about it. Thought she was winning. That was fine. I wanted her confident. Because confident people make mistakes. A week later she handed me a document. It wasn't a legal paper. It wasn't a note. It was a printed, color-coded list. The title at the top read, Relational in * Macy Restoration Plan. I remember staring at it, not fully processing what I was holding. It was formatted like a corporate memo, bullet points, subcategories, footnotes. At the bottom was a handwritten message. Let's do better together. Inside were demands. Not requests. Not suggestions. Demands. Schedules. Detailed breakdowns of how, when, and how often we would engage physically, complete with consent checklists, post-encounter review prompts, and performance metrics. I'm not joking. There was a literal scoring system. One section read, touch frequency non-s *zul minimum 5x per day. Must include physical intention and emotional availability. Verbal affirmation, morning, midday, evening. No repetition of phrases. Conflict protocols, all emotional reactions must be delayed by 10 minutes to ensure neutrality. Another section outlined accountability check-ins, which included a self-rating worksheet I was expected to complete weekly. One page had boxes to list the ways I'd interfered with her journey. I stared at the list for a long time. She stood across from me, arms folded, chin raised, waiting for resistance. I looked up and said, okay. Her eyes widened. Okay. I nodded. If this is what you need. She blinked, thrown off by how quickly I folded. And just like that, I gave her what she thought she wanted, obedience. I stuck the paper on the fridge, right next to her grocery list. She thought I was breaking. That I was too tired to argue, too passive to fight. She didn't see the fire behind my eyes. Or the clock I had started ticking in my mind. Every day I followed that absurd list was a day closer to leaving it behind forever. I complied. Outwardly. I checked boxes. Gave affirmations. Gently reached for her hand at random intervals. I played the game. But every time I met a checkpoint, I logged it not for her records but for mine. I kept *TS. Notes. Photos of her handwritten edits where she crossed out my scores and replaced them with her own. One day, she gave me a C-4 emotional reactivity. I took a photo and smiled. She had no idea she was building my case for me. A week later, I started working with IT at my company to shift into a partial remote schedule. I told them I was restructuring my home life and needed flexibility. They were understanding. I was a lead engineer, trusted, never late. They didn't ask questions. I began the process of leasing a small apartment under a name variation, Jason H., instead of Jason Harper, tied to the new bank account. First month paid in cash. The unit was modest but clean. Just a bedroom, kitchenette, and enough space to think. I furnished it slowly, one piece at a time. A lamp here, a mattress there. I brought books she never read, music she didn't like. Things that were mine again. Every night I returned home like nothing had changed. She never asked about my longer absences. When she did, I used her own words. I needed space. She nodded, pleased. The illusion held. Meanwhile, her behavior grew bolder. She started leaving her phone unlocked, probably to signal trust. Or maybe she wanted me to see. Maybe she thought I was too broken to care. Or maybe she believed she had finally, truly won. That was her mistake. Because what she didn't know was that her own friends had already turned on her. One in particular, Lauren, had messaged me through a burner Instagram account. Said she couldn't stomach what was happening anymore. Said she hadn't realized the full extent of the demand list movement until recently. I didn't respond at first. But eventually I did. And when I did, she sent everything. *TS of their group chat. A circle of women, including May, comparing notes on how to emotionally dominate their partners. Calling it empowerment through discipline. Using terms like psychological reconditioning and partnership submission models. I read through every message with cold detachment. One message from May read. Jason's the last one to break. But he's close. I can tell. Once he caves, we can rebuild from scratch. Another. Might install a camera in the den. He's too compliant lately, feels off. And another. Lauren, stop being soft. You signed up for this. You wanted results. Lauren apologized again. I thanked her. Then I forwarded the messages to my lawyer. He didn't respond with questions. Just, got it. Logged. Keep going. And so I did. I played the part. Smiled at the right times. Filled out her in * Macy evaluations. Gave her a kiss goodnight. Whispered affirmations she'd written herself. All while building my exit. She thought silence meant surrender. But in reality, my silence was war. I used to think leaving a marriage would be loud, slamming doors, screaming matches, tearful breakdowns on hardwood floors. But the truth? Sometimes the exit is quiet. Surgical. Silent like the snap of scissors cutting thread. 3 weeks. That's how long it took to finish what I started. By the end of it, I was already gone, emotionally, legally, logistically, before she ever saw it coming. It began with the lease. The apartment was tucked behind a dental clinic in a bland brick building, not glamorous, but safe. Neutral. My name wasn't on the mailbox. The utilities were in the name of an LLC I opened a year ago for freelance consulting work. I paid for everything in cash or prepaid debit. The place had a small balcony. That mattered more than I expected. Every night I stood out there, watching the glow of city lights in the distance, feeling my shoulders relax in ways they hadn't in years. There was peace in knowing the space was mine, untouched by her tone, her rules, her ever-changing mood. I worked remotely from there 3 days a week now. May didn't question it. If anything, she seemed relieved I was gone more often. Less proximity meant less risk of discovery on her end. She didn't know it was the same on mine. In the mornings, I still returned to the house shaved, showered, lunch packed like I'd been in the office. Some days I even brought her coffee. She thanked me with a kiss on the cheek, oblivious to the fact that my phone was already synced to her cloud, that I had installed monitoring software on her laptop through a clone drive, that her entire digital life now lived in a separate hard drive in my storage unit. She had no idea. But her friends did. At least 2 of them. Lauren kept sending things, *TS of texts, audio clips from voice memos May had shared with her inner circle. One file was a full recording of a meeting they had in someone's living room. Pillows in a circle, candles flickering in the background, May's voice front and center. We are not controlling our partners. We are retraining them. There were affirmations afterward. Repeated lines like a cult chant. My boundaries matter more than their discomfort. If they resist, they are not evolved enough to love me. I will not yield to outdated emotional contracts. I sent those files to my lawyer. He asked if I wanted to file for psychological abuse. I said not yet. We were almost there. By now, every move I made had purpose. I shut down joint accounts, starting with the ones she never touched, investment apps, credit cards we rarely used. Then I started rerouting paychecks. Opened a P.O. box. Even bought a second phone, a burner I kept in the glove compartment of my car, loaded with everything I might need if things went sideways. She still thought she was in control. Still updating her restoration chart every Sunday with little smiley faces for emotional compliance and gold stars for positive energy during conflict de-escalation. I photographed every update. She started to notice I wasn't pushing back anymore. And for a moment, I think she questioned it. One night, she leaned across the table after dinner, her eyes narrowed like she was trying to read a foreign language on my face. "You've changed," she said. "Is that bad?" I asked. She tilted her head. "No. It's just different." I nodded. "Growth looks different on everyone." She smiled. Relaxed. That was the moment I knew she believed the act again. She was back in control, or so she thought. 2 days later, I had my final prep meeting with the attorney. Everything was lined up. The evidence was airtight. The financials were separated. The apartment was furnished. My employer had my back. I even filed a quiet complaint with my company's internal security team. Just in case. I told them I was preparing for a personal legal separation and there was a chance of emotional volatility. I didn't name her. Just asked that building access be restricted to badge only after hours, no exceptions. They understood. I started pulling things out of the house, bit by bit. A hoodie here, a pair of sneakers there. Books from the shelf. Tools from the garage. I kept it subtle. She never noticed. Or maybe she noticed and didn't care. Maybe she thought she'd already broken me. Then came the last piece. I needed a moment. A scene. Not for drama, for clarity. For closure. For legal positioning. And for my own peace of mind. So I planned a dinner. I invited her to meet me at a rooftop restaurant downtown. The one we had gone to on our 5th anniversary back when we were still building something worth saving. I booked the same table. Reserved it under her maiden name so she wouldn't get suspicious. Told her it was a surprise. A new start. She arrived wearing the necklace I gave her on that anniversary, the one she'd claimed to have lost a year ago. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I realized how much of our life together had been a loop of disappearing and reappearing truths. She smiled when she saw me. "You really did all this?" she asked, settling into the seat, smug. "For us," I said, matching her smile. "We ordered drinks." She launched into her usual monologue about moving forward, about how proud she was of me for re-engaging with my purpose. She used all the right words, trauma language, empowerment language, like we *P***NS dressed as therapy. I let her speak. Halfway through her second glass of wine, I reached into my coat and placed a folder on the table. She blinked at it. "What's this?" "Your restoration plan," I said. She furrowed her brow. "What?" "Annotated," I added. "With footnotes. Legal ones." She opened the folder. Inside were printed copies of her demand list, *TS of group chats, her emails under the pseudonym Daisy Sloan, receipts, hotel confirmations, audio transcripts. A full narrative. Clear. Undeniable. Time-stamped. And at the bottom, divorce papers. Signed. Filed. Ready. She stared at them for a long time. Silent. Then it began. First came denial. A scoff, then a sharp laugh. "This is ridiculous." Then rage. "You've been spying on me?" I said nothing. "You manipulated me." Still nothing. "You don't get to do this, Jason." She reached for her phone. I didn't flinch. She didn't realize the message she was about to send was already mirrored on my second device. Her contact list. Her location pings. Her storage drive. All backed up. "You broke my trust," she said, as if irony didn't exist. I finally looked up. Calm. Unshaken. "You we *P***nized love," I said. "All I did was disarm you." That silenced her. She tried to cry next. Tears welling, voice cracking. Reaching across the table. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to fix us." I stared at her hand. Unmoving. "There is no us," I said. "You broke the contract. You kept writing new ones without telling me. But we can." "No," I said, standing. "This was the ending. You just didn't realize you wrote it." I left her sitting there, shaking, trying to pick up papers that kept slipping from her grip in the breeze. She called me that night. I didn't answer. She texted. I didn't reply. I went home to my home, and for the first time in years, slept without checking the door locks twice. The extraction was complete. She didn't go quietly. May tried everything. Rage, pleading, even performative breakdowns in front of mutual friends. She told anyone who'd listen that I had *P***nized documentation against her. That I'd emotionally abandoned her during her healing journey. But truth doesn't bend that easily. My lawyer submitted everything. The group chat screenshot *TS, the demand list, the monitoring data, the emails under her alias. Her friends stopped backing her. Even Lauren submitted a sworn statement. The court saw through it all. She tried to claim emotional abuse, ended up exposing her own. And when the judge asked about her rating system for Macy compliance, her face drained. That smug composure cracked right there in the courtroom. The ruling came fast. The house went to me. Our assets were split, but fairly, weighted by the manipulation she'd inflicted and the proof I had. Her reputation took a quiet fall. The women from the circle went silent. I moved into a new phase of life. The apartment became a home, then a haven. I took a promotion, reconnected with old friends, laughed without filtering myself. One day, I got a message from Lauren. "You were right to stay quiet." I thanked her, and I meant it, because in the end, it wasn't my anger that ended it. It wasn't confrontation. It was silence. Her list of demands was meant to control me, but it became her confession. She thought she'd broken me, but she only taught me how to walk away.